Bud's FairyTale by James Whitcomb Riley. Some peoples thinks they ain't no fairies now no more yet. But they is, I bet. 'Cause ef they wasn't fairies, nen I like to know who'd write 'bout fairies in the books, and tell what fairies does, and how their picture looks, and all and everything. Ef they don't be fairies anymore, nen little boys, you'd east sleep when they go to sleepin', won't have east no dweams at all, 'cause fairies, good fairies, they're a purpose to make dweams. But they is fairies, and I know they is. 'Cause one time wunst, when it's all summertime, and don't have to be no fires in the stove or fireplace to keep warm ner don't have to wear old scwatchy flannen shirts at all, and ain't no fweeze, ner cold, ner snow. And old squeeky twees got all the gween leaves on and east keeps noddin all the time, like they, ooze lazy and a twyin' to go to sleepin', couldn't, 'cause the wind won't quit a blowin' in 'em, and the birds won't stop a singin' so's they kin. But twees don't sleep, I guess, but little boys sleeps, and dweams too, and that's a sign they's fairies. So, one time, when I been playin' store, wunst over in the shed of their old stable, and Ed Howard he maked me quit a bein' partners, 'cause I dwinked the 10 like sody water uppin' at the shore nuff sea whackers. Nen I clumbed over in our garden where the gwapes was pert, nigh ripe, and I was east a layin' there on old sea whooped seat at pa make it in our arbor, and so I ooze layin' there a whittlin' beats wiv my new dog knife, and a lookin' white up through the twimbly leaves, and wuzn't sleep at all. And, sir, first thing you know, a little fairy hopped out there. A leetle teenty fairy, hope may die, and he looked down at me, he did, and he ain't bigger'n a yeller bird. And he say, howdy do, he did, and I could hear him, east as plain. Nen I say, howdy do, and he say, I'm all hunky, nibsy, how's your folks comin' on? And nen I say, my name ain't nibsy, never, my name's Bud, and what's your name? I says to him, and first laugh and say, Bud's awful funny name. And he east laid back on a big bunch o' gwapes and laugh, he did, like somebody ooze tick on his feet. And nen I say, what's your name? Nen I say, afore you bust yo, sef a laughin' 'bout my name? I says, and nen he dwee up laughin' kindo mad, and say, my name's Squidgicum, he says. And nen I laughin', say, gee, what a name, and when I make fun of his name, like that, he east git awful mad and spunky, and, for you know, he east gwobbed holt of a vine, a big long vine, 'at's danglin' up there, and he east helt on white tight to that, and down he swung quick past my face, he did, and east kicked at me hard's he could. But I'm too quick fair Mr. Squidgicum. I east reached out and catched him, in my hand, and held him, too, and squeezed him, east like little wobbins when they can't fly yet and git flopped out their nest. And nen I turn him all wound over, and look at him closet, you know, white closet, 'cause ef he is a fairy, I want to see the wings he's got, but he's dressed up so fine 'at I can't see no wings. And all the time he's twyin' to kick me yet, and so I take fash holts and squeeze again, and harder, too, and I says, hold up, Mr. Squidgicum. You're kickin' the wong man, I says, and nen I east squeeze him, pert, nigh my best, I did, and I heerd so meppin' bust. And nen he see weed and says, you better look out what you're doin'. You bust my spiderweb suspenders, and you got my wose-leaf coat all quinkled up so's I can't go to old Miss Hoodgicum's tea party, s'afternoon. And nen I says, who's old Miss Hoodgicum? I says and says, ef you lemme loose I'll tell you. So I helt the little skeezicks, way fur out in one hand, so's he can't jump down ground without a gittin' all stove up, and nen I says, you're loose now. Go ahead and tell 'bout the tea party, where you're goin' at so awful fast. I says, and nen he say, no use to tell you 'bout it, 'cause you won't believe it, 'less you go there your own sef and see it wiv your own two eyes, he says. And he says, ef you lemme sure nuff loose, and pemise at you'll keep white still, and won't touch nothin' at you see, and never tell nobody in the world, and lemme loose, nen. I'll take you there, but I says, yes, and ef I let you loose, you'll run. I says, and he says, no, I won't. I hope may die, nen I says, see was your heart you won't. And first CWOSS his heart, and nen I weechin, set the little feller up on a long vine, and he, ooze so tickled to git loose again, he gwob, the vine wiv boff. His little hands and east taken, turn in, he did, and skin bout 11 cats. Nen when he git through whirlin wound the vine, and set on top of it again, we nen his wozleaf coat, he bwag so much about, it's east all tored up, and east hangin strips and rags, so he look like his paw a dwunkard. And, so nen when he see what he's done, actin up so smart, he's awful mad, I guess, and east pout out his lips and twiz his little face first ugly as he kin, and set and tear his whole coat off, and sleeves and all. And nen he wad it all together and east throw it at me east as hard as he kin dwive. And, when I weech to catch him, and ooze goin to give him, neuver squeezin'. He east flewed clean up on top the arbor, 'cause, you know, they was wings on him, when he tored his coat clean off, they was wings under there. But they was purty wobbly like and wouldn't work hardly at all 'cause purty soon, when I throwed clods at him, and sticks, and got him shooed down off o there, he come a floppin' down and lit. K-bang, on our old chicken co-op, and east laid there a whimper, and like a child. And I tiptoed up white closet, and I says, what's the matter wive, squidgicum? And says, doggone. When my wings gets street weight again, where you all see wumpledom, he says, I bet I'll east fly clean away and won't take you to old Miss Hoodjicum's at all, he says. And nen I east weech out white quick, I did, and gwob the sassy little snipe again. Nen took my top's twing and tie down his wings so's he can't fly, less'n I want him to. And nen I says, now, Mr. Squidgicum, you better east light out, I says, to old Miss Hoodjicum's, and show me how to get there, too, I says, ef you don't, I says, I'll climb up wivu on our buggy shed and push you off. I says, and nen he say all white, he'll show me there, and tell me nen to set him down white easy on his feet, and loosen up the saintwing a little where it cut him under arms. And nen he says, come on, he says, and went a limpin' long the garden path, and limpin' long. And long telephone, purty soon he come on, long to where's a big cabbage leaf. And he stooped down and say, come on inender here wiv me. So I stoop down and crawl inender there, like he say. An, inender there's a big clod, they is, a awful big clod. And, nen he says, roll this here clod away. And, so I roll, the clod away, and, nen it's all wet, where the dew's inender where the old clod was, and, nen the fairy he git on the wet place. Nen he say to me, git on the wet place, too. And, nen he say, now hold breath and shet eyes, he says, telephone I say squinchy winchy. Nen he say, sumpin in Dutch, I guess. And, nen I felt like ooze sinkin' down. An, sinkin' down. Telephone purty soon the little fairy weech and pinch my nose and yell at me and say, squinchy winchy. Look wherever you please. Nen when I looked, oh, they, ooze purtiest place down there you ever saw in all the world. They, ooze east flowers and wozes, yes, and twees wiv blossoms on an big ripe apples boff. An, butterflies, they was, and hummin' birds, and yellow birds and blue birds, yes, and red. And everywhere's an all awound, ooze vines wiv ripe preserve pears on 'em. Yes, and all and everything 'at's ever gwowen in a garden, or canned up, all ripe at wunst. It was east like a garden, only it, ooze little tit-o garden bout big. Wound as east our twaddle bed is. And all wound the little garden's a gold fence, and little gold gate, too, and ash hopper, 'at's all gold, too, and east full o gold ashes. and white in th, middle o' the garden was a little gold house, at's east bout as big as east a birdcage is, and, in the house they, ooze whole lots more fairies. There 'cause I picked up the little house, and, peeked in at the winders, and, I see 'em all in their first buggin, wound. And, Mr. Squidgicum he twy to make me quit, but I gwab him, and, poke him down the chimbley, too, I did. And, you'rt to see him hop out, mongst 'em there. First like he, ooze the boss and, east got back. Hain't ye got on them air do dumplins yet? He says, an, they says no. And, nen he says, better git at 'em nen. He says, white quick 'cause old Miss Hudgicum's a comin'. Nen they all set wound a little gold tub, and, all, men stay peelin' dewdwops, east like they, ooze peaches. And, it looked so funny, I first laugh out loud, and, dwopped the little house, and, tea busted like a soap bubble. And skeered me so, it skeered me so, east waked up. No. I ain't been asleep and, dream at all, like you think, but it's sure fair certain fact and, cwoss my heart it is.